Hello. Hey, I wanted to pop in here on this beautiful spring day and show you how to create this Hugs for You card. So this uses Waffle Flowers February release. So it's going to use the Spring Breeze stencil. This is part of the Postage Collage series. However, it doesn't give you like the stamp look like some of the other ones do, but you could cut this up as a stamp, but we're using this as a background. We're also using the overlapping Hugs die and stencil. So this, it looks like it just comes with like this one die, but if you flip over the packaging, you get the stencil with it. So you use them both together. And then there is another one like that is Hello Friend. And again, you have the stencil on the backside. We're not using that one today. We're just using the Hugs. And then the Hugs has a coordinating word set and the coordinating dies. So we're going to add that. So you could do like Hugs or Hugs friend and get well, love for you, or sending. So you could do like sending hugs or hugs for you, just to dress up and add a little bit more to the hug sentiment. So I'm going to show you how we're going to use that. And we're going to create this card, only we're going to add a little bit of bling to it. So this is the original card, and I'm going to show you how to step it up and just add a little bit of extra to it. So we are starting with I have my panel here. We are using Catherine Puller inks, Quartz Rose Petals, Seafoam, and Lilac, and Verbena. And on this card, we use Goldenrod on the last stencil for the yellow. We are going to be changing that up with some Astro paste to give it a little bit of extra bling to it. All right, so to start off with the stencils, and I did use these last night and did not clean them. So you want to be able to, they have stenciling, or they have like the imprint of the name of the stencil. And this one says 1 of 5. I'm sure you can't see that in the video. And it says upper wings. We're actually going to start on this one with the second stencil, which is the lower wings. And it does have a little, you can see a little imprint, etched area for the outline of your photo mat. So I'm just going to line that on the stamp wheel. The stamp wheel has this mat that is sticky, so my paper sticks to it. I didn't have to adhere anything to it. And now I'm going to line up the stencil and just press it down. So I don't need to add any adhesive to keep that down. And I'm starting with the Quartz because I wanted the lower wings. I guess it doesn't matter. Had the lower wings with the lighter color. And so I was just going to start with that. So I'm just inking up my brush. And then I'm just doing in circular motions. And I'm starting on, when I stencil, I start on the stencil part. It takes off some of the ink, so you get a little bit better blend. And so I'm just going to fill in all of these. And now with this stencil, the Postage Collage stencils work great with the mini daubers that look like this, that have a little foam on the end. This one has some bigger areas. So for that, I'm using the brush instead of the foam. With the foam, you can pounce. And like I said, it's a smaller area on a lot of the stencils, but this one has some bigger areas to color in. And so I'm going to use a brush for this. All right, so like I said, I started with the second stencil. Peel that off, and then I'm putting on the first one. With some of these, it really doesn't matter. And you can see, I'll show you here, when you put the two stencils together, you can see that they have this overlapping area where you can get a nice mix of colors. So now I need stencil 1, and I'm going to line that up with my panel. And switch colors to rose petal. Now, one reason I started with the lighter color is that if I use the same brush, I usually go lighter to darker. I did grab clean brushes for this. And again, I'm just going to start on the stencil and work my way into the design. And just go, and then I'm also picking up the ink on the stencil. So I'm not wasting it. I am picking it up as I make the circular motion. And I do find that I do get a nicer blend when it is a circular motion instead of a pouncing motion. Okay, so let me get these two areas colored in. And then if you want them darker, you could just go over them more. All right, so there is the rose petal, and that would be stencil. Like I said, I did stencil 1 and 2 opposite of each other. Now we're going to do stencil 3, which is flowers. And we're going to do the flowers with lilac. And again, I just kind of press it down to make sure that the mat's holding it. And I usually do have a hold on the stencil. And now I'm just doing the same thing, making circular motions in all of the flowers. And you can make some of them lighter, some of them darker, just by how hard you're pressing on the brush. Okay, just a few left. All right, so that is the third stencil. And now we're going to add the fourth stencil. And notice how this, I can just peel off the stencils and the paper stays in place. So now we're going to add the fourth, make sure it's the right side up. And this one, it does say green on there. It does, some of these do give you a guide as to what color to use. Sometimes they say lighter, sometimes darker. But this is going to be the leaves and the stems. So I want to get that lined up. And then I'm going to grab the Seafoam. And I do have a green brush for that. I always get asked if I clean my brushes, and sometimes I honestly really don't. I just grab brushes that are in the same family. So I just have a brush for the pinks, a brush for the red. I do like one for lighter and one for darker. Doesn't always work out. So now I'm just doing the same thing, kind of starting on the stencil instead of right in the open area. I'm starting on the plastic part of the stencil. I'm just starting a circular motion. Now the other thing to mention when you're blending ink, the further out on the brush you hold it, the lighter it's going to be. As you get more towards the head of it, you get more pressure and it's going to be darker. And you're just going to see after you do several, you're just going to find out what your natural grip with it is. But sometimes when I have a darker color and I don't have the proper lighter color, I'm just more mindful to hold the brush at the end so I'm not pressing down as hard. Okay, so we just have a few more to finish up here. So get this a little bit darker. And again, I just like to kind of go over the whole stencil and just blend in the ink from the stencil so we're not wasting it. And now we're on to the last of these stencils for the Spring Breeze set. Now this is the yellow one, and so this is the one that on, oh wait, I didn't even put that on the right side. Always make sure that it has the name on it. Make sure you can read that so you're actually putting it on there the proper way. So this is going to be the center of the flowers and the body of the butterfly. And now for this one, I use Goldenrod. But for this time, we're going to step it up a bit and use the Astro paste. And this is Slippery When Wet. Astro paste by Simon Hurley. And so I'm just going to mix it up a tad. I don't really need a lot for this. So I'm just going to put it on there. And now with this, I do kind of hold, I want to hold the stencil down so it doesn't move. And so I don't get a pillow on the inside of it, you know, where you get like the air underneath it. So I do hold it down. But now the one thing is I don't want to just like scrape it all off because I do like that textured look. So I'm just spreading it around and I'm just going to kind of pat it. So I just don't want the paste to go underneath. So that's why I hold it down, especially in the middle, the larger area in the middle. Just one more little flower, and I think I have them then. So now I don't want it to be like flat. I want there to be a little bit texture, so I'm just going to kind of gently scrape off some of this extra. And as long as you haven't mixed colors, you can put it right back in the jar. So if you get too much on there, you don't have to worry about wasting it. But like I said, I kind of wanted to pat over and get a little bit of texture where the gold is on the paper. All right, now I will wash that off. So I'm just going to set that aside. And now with this one, I am going to very gently lift it up. And I will want to wash that off, but look at that. Isn't that cool? Can you see all the glitter in there? See what a difference that makes from the ink? The ink is still very beautiful, but it's a much more flat look. Whereas with the gold, it just makes it pop. All right, so I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to carefully peel this off. And we're going to set that aside. And now with the hugs, you get the stencil and you get the die. And it does say on the packaging to die cut first, that it is recommended that you die cut before you stencil. So I'm just going to run this through my little die cut machine. And so while I have the Astro paste drying, I'm going to do the rest of the card. Okay, so we have the hugs cut out. Again, I'm just going to set that down in the middle. And then I'm going to align the H. The first part of the stencil is the H and the G. Now you can do each one a separate color, and there is enough space between them to accomplish that easily without masking. but we are just going to do pink for the H and G and purple for the U and the S. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Quartz. Actually, I'm going to use rose petal and make it a little bit darker. I think that's what I used last night. No, I definitely used the Quartz on that. So we are going to do, I'm just going to make it the same as, actually I'm going to use the rose petal and make this a little bit darker. So again, I'm just inking it up, and I do start on the edge or on the plastic part of the stencil. And I'm just going over the G and the H. They have the openings. The stencil is very nicely separated for you with enough space that you don't have to worry about masking. Okay, and now we're going to do Verbena, which is a little bit darker purple than the lilac. And this mat really does hold the stencils well. And you can see there how the letters overlap. Okay. And so now for the Verbena. Again, I'm just going to start on the stencil. And now if you're using like very different colors, you might want to wipe the stencil off. The purples and the pinks are pretty close. So just like, so you wouldn't be rubbing up here and grabbing some of the pink on there. So it would be a good idea to wipe off the stencils between the two different layers. All right, so now we have the hugs done. And so now you can see how that is so much more, that is much bolder than the other ones. The other ones I did the lilac and the quartz. So you can see if I would have done it in the darker colors, it does pop a lot more. The lighter colors give it a more subtle effect. And then we need to stamp the word for you. And I do have that lined up on the plate. Let's set that aside when I still need it. Now, the one thing I did notice last night is that these words are long. And so you want to make sure that you get it lined up in a straight line. And it also is actually a good idea to take your die and match it up with it to make sure that it's not, you don't have a big curve or bend to it. And that will also make it much easier to die cut. So I just have that in the middle. And then I'm going to use Verbena. Ink that up. And we're going to do that one more time just to get it a little bit darker. And with the stamp wheel, it's easy to, like I said, the mat keeps your paper in place. And then you can just flip over the flip plate and re-ink and re-stamp. All right, so now I believe I'm done with the stamp wheel, so I'm going to set that aside. And now I need the For You die and a little bit of tape. And I'm going to align that. And I have pixie tape because I was gone last week and I still haven't unpacked my supplies. So I usually use the Best Ever Craft tape from Spellbinders for this, but it's somewhere in my pile. And then I need my mat or my plate. So I'm going to run this through. And I have you and 4 cut out. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I want to add a little bit of dimension. Now, I do have foam strips here that I'm going to use to pop up the card, the panel from the card and the word hugs. But these are really thin, or I mean, the words for you are very thin. So it's not going to work as well to use foam on them. Plus, I don't need as much dimension as the foam tape for those. So what I'm going to do is cut this out 2 more times, just not stamped, just out of the white paper. So again, not stamped, I'm just cutting it out. And I'm going to do that 1 more time. I think I can get it in there. I don't know, I'm trying to skimp on that when I have like 3 other strips cut here. All right, I think I'm done with that. So now I'm going to take these words for you and the extra pieces I die cut that are just white, and I'm going to glue them together. That will create a little bit of extra thickness for them. So I'm just going to take my liquid glue and start with tweezers here. Okay. So I have the detail tip on the glue, and I'm just doing a little bit. And with the Barely Art, you do have a little bit of slide time, so you can get them positioned exactly on top of each other. And then 1 more. Okay. So now you can see how that adds. So this one is glued together. This one is not. You can see how that adds just a little bit of dimension and thickness to it. So I'm just going to do the same thing for the word for. And now I'm going to take, actually before I do the base, I'm going to do some inking on the card. So this is my card base. And when I did this card, I trimmed it off 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, the panel down by 1/4 of an inch. And then I popped it up. But on the background, instead of it being white, I inked it with the rose petal. So I just have a piece of scratch paper here that I'm putting on the inside. And this is a silicone mat that I'm working on. So that is fine to get that dirty. And again, I'm just going to take my brush. And now I don't need to ink that far in, just around the edge. And I'm going to do that all the way around. And this is just a great way to add some color to your card, and especially if you don't have like a matching cardstock or want to get out another piece of cardstock, just use your inks. It's going to coordinate perfectly with the stamped image and the other stenciling you've done. It's going to blend in those heavy spots a little bit. And the nice thing about the Catherine Pooler inks is it does smooth out as it dries. Okay, and almost done with that. Just want to get this little area down here. Okay, so now we have our card base. And the reason I put the paper in there was so that I didn't get any ink on the inside. I did get a little bit on the back. So I'm just going to clear off the silicone mat. Okay, so now I'm going back to my card panel, and those are dry. So I could go around and trim 1/8 of an inch off each side, which I will probably do for this one. On the other one, I just cut 1/4 inch off of 2 sides. All right, so now I could glue this panel directly down, but I am going to pop it up. I'm going to carefully add these foam strips to the back side. I just don't want to press down too hard in case the Astro paste is not completely dry. And this is the foam strips from Scrapbook Adhesives. This is the small set. I'm just doubling it up, taking 2 pieces at a time to get a little bit wider band. And then I'm just going to put 2 more in the middle to give the middle a little bit of structure. Okay, get that piece off there. And just 2 little pieces. All right, make sure your card opens the right way. And I'm going to center that. So now we have the card base, and look at that glitter. Isn't that fun? All right, so now to finish it off, I'm going to add a few more foam strips to the back of Hugs. And before I peel it off, decide on the last one, I put it right in the middle. But I think I'm going to move it down here. And just put it in the bottom right corner. And now I just have the for you. And I could put that right in the middle of the word. I kind of liked it down on the bottom. I could have. I'm going to put it right in the middle. And just a little bit of the liquid glue. Hold it down for a second. And do the same thing with the word you. And there you go. Hugs for you. Spring card with a little bit of gold bling to it. And here's the original card. So you can see how just stepping it up with the Astro paste on that last level of the stencil, the last layer of the stencil, really makes it pop. All right. Thank you for watching.